Today we are getting straight back into some tennis trading strategies. Now we touched on tennis trading a few months back possibly now, and I went in as a complete beginner as I do with everything on this channel. Now to start with, I was a bit more confused with tennis trading. Football I know and love, and I've known football for pretty much all my life. I know all the rules, I know basically the rough guide when it comes to trading as well, because if you know the sport you can get a good idea of how to trade as well with the sport. So coming into tennis, it was a bit of a shock to me, but I've managed to start getting the hang of a few little tactics and a few little strategies that have made me a little bit of profit. Now the strategy today that we're going to be going through is called the backing a drifting favourite strategy. It is very simple. You are looking at a game where there is a clear favourite to win the match in terms of rankings, previous competition history, everything like that. Going into this game, that guy was the favourite, but for some reason during the game he has drifted. He is no longer the favourite, or he might be the favourite still, just not as clear a favourite as when the game started. You're then going to take advantage of this point in the game, back the favourite, and hope that they then get back into the game, or at least get a few sets under their belt and get some decent return for you. So today I have two examples of when to back a drifting favourite. The first one is going to show me making a little bit of a profit from a very quick trade, and by a quick trade I mean literally about a 2-minute trade on tennis, and I got my profit returned to me. That is one thing you will learn about tennis trading compared to football trading. There is no wait in 15, 20 minutes, 90 minutes even for your trade to be completed. You will literally sometimes be in and out of the market within minutes, if not seconds at some point. Obviously you can stay in the market longer depending on what strategy you're using or how the game is going. It's completely up to you, but majority of the time with tennis you're going to be in and out, and it's going to be very quick. The second trade today I'm going to show you guys is actually a trade I made a loss on, and it is going to be quite helpful, because if I hadn't made a loss, if I hadn't got out the market when I did and stuck with the trade, stuck with my gut instinct and my research behind the players, I would have actually made a very nice profit. So that is going to be a little bit of a don't do this later on in the video, but to start with we've got a nice quick little profit. So if I just show you guys the PowerPoint behind me and we get straight into the first trade. So the first trade was with Arthur and Dominic. Arthur went into the game as the clear favourite, but because he'd lost a set I think earlier on, I think his serve got broke by Dominic and he was starting to drift away a little bit. You can see that we actually managed to get Arthur at odds of 2.26. So I obviously put £5 on there. I didn't go too out there. This was the first time I was ever using this strategy. I wanted to just go in with a small stake, as you guys know I like to do. So I went in with a nice small stake of £5 back in Arthur, and then as it went on, he eventually broke Dominic's serve, I believe, in the last round, and then he went on to serve as well. So him then serving and doing well in his service meant his price slowly started to drop. And in fact, when I managed to get out the market and back against Arthur, winning the game, I managed to get a price of 1.96 for the majority of it, and then 1.97 for the rest. So you can see that I managed to just get quickly in and out. It was literally about 2 minutes, and I managed to make a quick profit of 72 pence. That may not seem like a lot, but in terms of the money I put on that stake, it was actually a 14% return. So that's more than what I normally expect to get from my football trades. It was a very nice, quick 14% return. Obviously, you will have the occasions in games like this where the drifting favourite stays the drifting favourite and then goes on to lose the game. But luckily for us, tennis games are a bit easier to predict who the favourite is and who should win the game, because of how most of the tournaments are seeded. You're going to get a clear favourite from time to time. Think of it in football terms of a cup game. You've got a Premier League team against maybe a League 1, League 2 side. You know who the clear favourite is. You're occasionally going to get an upset, but 6-7 times out of 10 you're going to have the favourite get through to the next round. Think of it like that when it comes to tennis. But if we go to the next slide here, you can see at just what point I managed to get in at the market. So if I get my cursor up here as well, you can see I got in back in Arthur around this point here at the 2.26 mark. I could have stayed for a little bit longer and got a bit better odds as well when him drifting up nearly to 2.7, but I got in a bit earlier in the market because I thought he was going to do a little bit better. You can see then instantly he won his service. It started to drop down. We had a bit of a fluctuation there again, but eventually he did then drop down to the 1.9 mark, which is when I got out of the trade. So you can see though, the odds in tennis range so quickly and so drastically. He went from being the favourite, although not a massive favourite, he was still the favourite before the game. A few wrong serves, a few points missed here and there, and he shot up in odds. But then it took the same small selection of points and serves yet again to bring his price right back down to being the favourite. The odds change drastically in tennis, which is why if you're able to predict what's going to happen and know the market, you can get in at a certain point, come out and make quite a nice bit of profit. But it is a very simple strategy. You're just waiting for someone's odds to shoot up, even if you're still expecting them to go on and win, or at least look like they're going to win in the game so you can make some profit. You then wait for them to do a little bit better, odds for that player to drop down, and then you get your profit and get straight out. It is as simple as that. I don't even know who ended up winning this game because it doesn't matter at that point. Now with back in the drifting favourite, it is just normally one trade. You're going to go in at the best point in the game that you think is going to be the best point of the favourite drifting. You're then going to get out a few minutes later, and that's going to be it. There is other tennis strategies such as scalping, where you're going to stick with the same game and you're going to do multiple trades on both the opponents to then lock in a profit overall. We will get to scalping in the future. It is the strategy I tried a bit earlier on a few months ago, but obviously I would not recommend that video if you're brand new to tennis trading. Just stick with the nice simple strategy like this one to start with, and then we'll move on to scalping at another date. So the next trade I did was between Federico Delbonis and I believe the other guy was called Hugo Gaston. So as you can see, before this game started, bearing in mind this is pretty much the price over time for the whole game. It was a long one, this one. But you can see before the game started, Federico Delbonis was the clear favourite, and I did a little bit of research using just some random tennis stat websites. If I can find a really good one, I'll let you guys know. But based on the stats beforehand, Delbonis was the clear favourite going into this game. But as you can see, it went really bad for Delbonis to start with, and I didn't get into the trade at the right point, which is why it's really important that I now stress the one thing you need to keep in mind when you're backing the drifting favourite is your entry point to the market. You need to have in mind the right spot to get into the market so you can fully maximise your profit. Whether or not you think the player's going to instantly do better or you think it might take a bit of time, maybe watch just a few sets or a few serves and decide at which point to get in. I was watching this game, and I'll be completely honest, Delbonis looked really poor, but I still got into the market with a £10 stake at 1.88. I was down here. He had gone from being about 1.4 up to 1.88, and I thought that was a big enough jump for me to make some profit. So I got in literally down at this point, which was a big mistake. I was watching the game, he wasn't playing well. I looked at his stats from previous games and know that sometimes he is a really late starter. He sometimes gives away the first game, but then does still come back to win the match against lesser opponents. He was ranked over 100 ranks higher than his opponent in this game. It was the perfect chance for me just to wait it out, and I should have done, but unfortunately I got in quite early. If I'd have waited, I could have got in at odds of 7, 10, 26 if I'd have fully waited. And then as the game went on, I did the one thing I shouldn't do. I went against my gut instinct. I saw that I was losing quite a bit of money, obviously getting in down here and then the odds being right up at the top. I was losing a lot of money and I just wanted out of that market. My trade ended up being a total of £20 as I backed up my stake later on in the game. I backed it up at, I believe, 2.6 and then again over 3 odds, and it just wasn't smart. I was basically just throwing more money hoping for the best, and then eventually the odds just kept climbing and kept climbing. And at this point, in hindsight, I should have put more money on and kept back in my gut instinct. But all I was thinking was, I'm not going to chase this loss. He isn't playing well. The other player was playing phenomenally. It was the time for me just to cut my losses in this market and get out before I lost more money. I thought that was the right choice. And if you ever feel like that's the right choice, then 100% of the time, get out of the market. If you think you're throwing money at a loss, then you're not trading anymore, you're just gambling. You've lost your head and you don't know what's happening. And that's exactly what I thought was happening with me at that point. I thought I was just going for it out of pure desperation not to make a loss. So although I had £20 in the market, I ended up making a loss of around £11. I managed to get £9 of that 20 secured, which I was very happy about at the time. It meant I wasn't losing the full £20. It is obviously a bit devastating when you don't win your trade, but as far as I was concerned, that was the right move to do. And even looking back in hindsight, although I could have stayed and quite comfortably made a very good profit, even a profit upon my first initial entrance to the market of 1.88, I'm still quite happy that I managed to get out, because if I'd have stayed and he'd gone on to lose the game, because it was getting very close, he didn't even get a single set in the first game, which is why he dropped to such high odds, I should say, climbed to such high odds. It really wasn't looking good for him, so I was glad to get out of the market. But as you can see, if I had stuck with it, I would have eventually made a fairly nice profit. And in fact, if I just show you guys exactly how much I lost, you can see here, I lost £11.89. But as you can also see over here in the scoreline, he did win the second set. But I got out during the second set because he was losing the second set 5-1. He had such a huge comeback. In the end, he has ended up losing the game. But during the time of that comeback, I could have definitely made some very nice profit. And in fact, I've made some little calculations. As you can see, I went into the market at 1.88. That was my initial entry point. If I'd have then left that £10 stake in the game, not touched it, and waited until he dropped down some odds, if you go back here and drop down to around about here, which was the perfect point. I was still watching the game at that point, and he was down at 1.34 odds. If I'd have waited till that point, I would have made a very nice little profit of £3.91, or roughly 39% return, which is a very high return. A nice, basically £4 off a £10 risk is quite a nice return, especially if it was a really quick turnaround. This one wasn't. I actually stayed in the market for a good half hour before I got out of it, so it was a really long drawn out one, but it could have still made me some nice profit. If, however, like I'm trying to stress as much as possible here, if I'd have timed the game properly and timed the market properly, and let's say I got into the market at a bit higher odds. Let's say I got into the market at this point here, where I put in 3.35 and did another £5 investment. If I'd have done my whole £10 investment at that point, which obviously still is nowhere near the highest point in the game, but if I'd have got in at that point and then waited to the 1.34 to get out of the market, I would have made a return on £10 of £14.70. That is total profit. That's not including the £10 stake. So that is a return of 147%. Even better, if you managed to time the market perfectly and got in right at the top. Not even right at the top. Let's even just say it's down at 17. Odds of 17. Still massive odds. But if you'd have done the research, you'll have saw he was the favourite and still stood a bit more of a chance. But at odds of 17, if you'd have got in with that £10 and then left at 1.34, you would have made a total profit of £113.68. That is just an incredible return, which is why it is extremely important when you follow the strategy of backing a drifting favourite, you wait for the right opportunity. If you can see that a favourite has started to drift, what I would first recommend you do is look up the favourite. Look through his recent stats, his recent games. Does he do this often? Is this something he regularly does? It doesn't have to be every game, maybe just every 3 or 4 games. Does he occasionally lose the first set, lose the first game, and then still go on to win, or is this completely out of character? After you've done a little bit of back research, I would 100% recommend you watch maybe just one service of each player. Watch one service of each player, see if they're both playing to their best ability. And then, with them 2 bits of information, you then need to make the biggest choice yet, which is, at what point am I going to enter the market? And then before you even enter the market, you should think about at what point you're going to exit. Whether this is a point where you think, I will leave the market if it gets to this odds for a profit, or I'll leave if it gets to this odds for a loss. That is a nice way to start, because then at least you've got 2 points to aim towards. Or if you decide you're getting out of the market at a certain point in the tennis game, so you can be watching the game, get into the market, and then say, right, regardless of the outcome, at the end of this service, I'm getting out of this game. They're the best ways to do it. If you know the exact point you're going to leave the market at the point you even before get into the market, then you will make sure that your loss, if things go wrong, is going to be minuscule and not massive. My loss here was massive. At certain points in the game, if I show you, you can see he went up and then came back down. Even just a little bit down here, he went up and down. At them points, I was debating coming out of the market. If I'd have come out of the market there, I'd have lost about £2. At certain points, after I got back into the market, there was even profit. Very minuscule profit, but there was profit in that game for me. It's all about knowing the right opportunity to get out of the market. Don't risk too much money. Don't risk what you can't afford, and definitely don't do what I did today. Definitely don't chase your loss unless you have it pinned in your mind already. If you'd have done some research on this game and thought, right, I'm going to get into the market now, but in 5 minutes there might be the potential to up my stake in this game because this player occasionally does that. If that's the case, you might be okay. But again, go in with your predetermined stake at the odds you decide and know when you're coming out. That'll get rid of the risk of you losing a big portion of your stake, and it will definitely make things a bit easier and stress-free. I was so annoyed when I came back to check on this game and so I could have made profit, but not as annoyed as I would have been if I'd put more money in and it had gone a different direction. So definitely stay within your limits and follow the plan you've got before the game. Back in the drifting favourite is a very good strategy. It works quite a lot of the time, especially if you can find the right game for it. But that is it for the strategy. Very simple. Find a game where there's a clear favourite, watch it, hope he drifts away a little bit, and then hope he gets back into the game. It is that simple. If you're really stuck in football ways like I still am a little bit, the easiest way to think of it, Man City are playing Crawley in the FA Cup. Crawley have gone 1-0 up. You're then going to back Manchester City because you know they're going to get back into it. That is essentially what the back in the drifting favourite is. Occasionally, you're going to have at points where Crawley's going to go 2-0 up. But as long as you're confident and your research shows you that your players are good enough to come back from it, then you can still get into the market. But make sure you try and time the market right, because timing the market correctly is honestly the difference, like I've shown you today, between losing 70% of your profit and making 1,000% return on your stake. It is that big of a jump depending on when you enter and leave the market. This was all the same game. Depending on when I went in and went out for the exact same trade, I could have made 1,000% of my stake, but in the end I've lost 70% of it. It's just the way that this strategy works. So make sure you get in at the right point. But thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and the subscribe button too if you are new, and let me know all your tennis strategies down below in the comments, and I'll be sure to start checking them out. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.